Hello friends, and welcome to this video for week 3 of the Spiritual Autobiography Project with the First Congregational Church of Crystal Lake. My name is Emily Davis. I'm Associate Pastor at the First Congregational Church, and as ever, I am so humbled and honored to be walking with you on this journey and so pleased that you have made your way here. If this is your first time tuning into one of our videos for the Spiritual Autobiography Project, I would invite you at this point to pause this video and go back to see some of the videos and lessons from weeks past. Those will walk you through some really early activities, including creating a personal history timeline that will be helpful for you as you continue along in this journey. If you are joining us for this third video because this is your third week engaging the project, welcome, and let's go ahead and get started. The past 2 weeks, we have written our personal history timeline and we have considered what physical movement has happened in our lives. This week, we're going to drill down a little bit more intentionally into the spiritual aspect of our spiritual autobiographies. By the end of this video, you will have been invited to begin writing about a moment in your life when you had an encounter with the divine. Now, having an encounter with God or with the divine can sound like an intimidating or a foreign concept. You may be thinking, oh gosh, I don't have a single example of that. What could I ever write about? Because we call to mind things like God finding Moses at the burning bush, or Jesus' baptism as the voice of God resounds in the air like this holy PA system, and that sort of thing. Most of us don't have experiences quite like this. And those of us that do often have few such encounters, if we have any. But God shows up in a lot of subtle ways too. And so I'm going to invite you, if you don't have one of those big booming encounters, to consider the subtle encounters that you've had with God throughout your lives. This week, actually, I hope will be a great deal of fun, because now, instead of relying on the more factual and empirical and witnessed by others parts of our lives, we're going to get to incorporate some of the stuff that is just ours. Visions that we've had, dreams that we've had, rituals that we participate in, symbols that feel important, epiphanies, moments when we've come to a big realization that has changed the course of our lives or even the course of a moment in our lives. All of these things are going to be yours to play with and write about as we move through this third week of work. But first, we should try something out that will give us a sense of what this might look like. And so as we have with every lesson so far, we're going to do so today by taking a look at the journey of Abraham and Sarah. So before we jump in, now's your chance to get yourself to a space where you can engage this video if you haven't already. Find a quiet spot or a comfy spot or maybe a challenging spot, wherever you want to do your writing and your work this week. As you go, gather up your writing materials, so your pen, your paper, your word processor, whatever you're going to need, and be sure to grab a Bible if you have one handy. Pause this video, get yourself settled in if you haven't already, and when you're all prepared, go ahead and press play and come on back. Okay, so now you're settled into your workspace and your writing space for the week. I'm going to invite you to grab your Bible. We're going to turn to the book of Genesis again this week, and I would like you to find chapter 15. Genesis is the very first book in the Bible, so turn to the way beginning of the Bible. Chapters are the big numbers, verses are the little numbers, so find big number 15, and we are going to read verses 1 through 21. And so it's a long passage, but here's how it sounds in my Bible. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram. Remember, Abraham, his name starts off in the story as Abram, and then later, after a specific encounter with God, he will change his name. God will change Abram's name to Abraham, so this is the same character. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. But Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, You have given me no offspring, and so a slave born in my house is to be my heir. He brought him outside and said, Look toward heaven and count the stars, if you are able to count them. Then he said to him, So shall your descendants be. And he believed the Lord, and the Lord reckoned it to him as righteousness. Then he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans, and I give to you this land to possess. But he said, O Lord God, how am I to know that I shall possess it? And he said to him, Bring me a heifer, 3 years old, a female goat, 3 years old, a ram, 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. He brought him all these, and cut them in two, laying each half over against the other. But he did not cut the birds in two. And when the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a deep and terrifying darkness descended upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, Know this for certain, that your offspring shall be aliens in a land that is not theirs, and shall be slaves there, and they shall be oppressed for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. As for yourself, you shall go to your ancestors in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age. And they shall come back here in the 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun had gone down, and it was dark, a smoking firepot and a flaming torch passed between these pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, and the land of the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim and the Amorites and Canaanites and Girgashites and the Jebusites. So much like we did last week in week 2 of this project, we are going to draw our writing prompts for this session directly from our text. We're going to do this week a series of 5 short prompts, and after completing all 5, I'm going to invite you to go back and expand upon the one that spoke the most to you. Our stories are not one size fits all, and so it's good for us to be aware that the writing exercises that we do, even though we're doing them together, might also not be one size fits all. So engage these 5 short prompts. Pay attention to which one is stirring something inside of you, which one feels like an extra ping in your brain or in your memory. Mark that one, and maybe that will be the exercise that you return to. But here is our first short prompt. As this passage begins, God speaks to Abram in a vision, and then Abram starts arguing with God. So here's what I want you to write about. Have there been times when you have found yourself arguing with God, or arguing with Jesus, or arguing with the church? If not, have there been times when you have had real doubts about the sacred truths that you were receiving from God or Jesus or the church? And what truth or discovery, if any, emerged as a result of these arguments or these doubts? What did you discover? What did you find to be something new or something real for you out of that argument? I want you to write a paragraph about that quarrel, whether it was a literal, exchange of words or an internal stirring. Write a paragraph about it. And then after that paragraph is complete, write 1 to 2 sentences describing how you feel about the whole thing now, in the present day. So you're going to consider an argument or a disagreement you've had with God, with Jesus, with the church. You're going to consider truths that emerged from that experience of being in conflict with God or Jesus and the church. Write a paragraph about that. And then once that paragraph about the real-time experience is done, write 1 to 2 sentences about how you feel now, looking back. Pause the video. I recommend 5 to 10 minutes for this exercise, and when you're done, come on back. Go ahead and pause the video, and we'll see you soon. So you just spent 5 to 10 minutes, maybe, depending on what you needed, writing that paragraph about a disagreement you had with God or Jesus or the church, and then your 1 to 2 sentences about how you feel about that whole process now. Here is our next prompt. In this passage that we read today, God makes a promise, a covenant with Abraham by pointing to the natural world. Wow, we hear about stars and land and river. And God uses this in order to help Abram, understand the blessings that God is going to be bestowing upon Abram. So here's your prompt. How has the natural world shaped your spirituality? Are there particular environments in the natural world where you feel especially peaceful or especially connected to the holy? I want you to describe one such place. There may be many, but pick one and describe that place using sensory details, and be sure to include how you feel when you're in that place. It could be some place in nature that's widely recognized as a sacred site, or a place that's just sacred to you. Either is fine. Again, take the time you need. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes, whatever works for you. Write about that place in the natural world that is sacred to you. Pause the video to do your writing, and when you're ready, come on back to the next prompt. For our third prompt, we're going to look again at Abram's story. Abram's encounter with God in this particular passage involves ritual action. In Abram's case, it's sacrificing animals, not a practice we really lean into anymore, but definitely a practice back in ancient times, in these early encounters between God and God's people. So let's think about ritual in your life. What ritual actions that you participate in your life seem to reveal the sacred to you? Do you especially notice God's presence maybe in receiving communion, or in serving coffee after worship when coffee hour was a thing and someday when it will be again? Or maybe volunteering regularly at a recurring event at the church, or at the food pantry, or at a pad shelter, or somewhere else. Don't be afraid to think outside of the four walls of the church when you're considering what your ritual may be, but I want you to describe one such ritual, one repeat activity where you encounter the divine and you feel the sacred revealed to you in a special way, as well as how that ritual reveals God to you. Once more, I recommend 5 to 10 minutes, but invite you to take the time you need to describe this ritual and how the sacred is revealed to you when you participate in it. Pause the video, come on back when you're ready to go again. It also says in our passage that after Abram falls into a deep sleep, God levels with Abram about the blessing and the challenges that Abram is going to face in the future. So I want you to describe a time when you learned a truth that contained both blessings and challenges for your future. When did you acquire this knowledge, and how? Who were you close to during this chapter of your life, and how did they help or hinder you as you sorted out the truth? And looking back on the event, did things transpire as you initially expected that they would? Take another 5 to 10 minutes for this one. Write about a truth that you discovered that contained both blessings and challenges for the future. Pause the video, and when you're ready, come on back for exercise number 5. For our final exercise, we're going to consider the fact that we experience the sacred in many different ways, but one common way that people often find themselves bumping up against the holy and running into God is through the arts. We are often moved by a hymn in worship or a song by Bruce Springsteen. We might find ourselves in tears over a painting at a museum. Reading a beloved poem can crack open the world and all the beautiful, holy things in it. I could go on and on and on. So here's the final prompt. Using sensory language, be really attentive to your sensory language. Using sensory language, describe a piece of art, textile, painting, poetry, music, whatever. Describe a piece of art that has moved you, that has changed you, that has disturbed you, that has affected you. Be sure to include other associations that you have with that moment. Where were you? What was the room like? Was someone with you? Was the art from your cultural background or from someone else's cultural background? Consider, if you want to have some extra fun, writing this one in the present tense to really put yourself in that moment and play with your language a little bit. Again, use sensory detail, present tense. Let's have some fun with this one. And write a paragraph, a good solid paragraph. And then after you've written that paragraph about the moment, go back and reread what you've written. And then add a few sentences, just a few quick sentences, describing how you feel now about that moment in your life, and in what ways, subtle or otherwise, you can see now that that experience changed you. So I'll repeat that one again because it's kind of a complex exercise. You're going to think of a piece of art that moved you. You're going to use sensory language to describe your encounter with that piece of art. If you want an extra challenge, you're going to put it in the present tense, so write like you're there right now. Write a paragraph, and then after that paragraph is done, read the paragraph and jot down a few sentences to yourself about how you understand that moment now and what impact it had on your life into the future and into this present moment. Pause the video. Again, I recommend 5 to 10 minutes for this one, but take the time you need. Don't take too much, don't take too little, use what you need. And when you're finished, come on back. So we have now moved through 5 short exercises. I'm hoping that one of them feels a little bit more exciting to you than the others. There might be a couple. But I'm betting that 1 or maybe 2 flowed a little bit more easily, or maybe it stirred something in you a little bit more. You have that heart-gut feeling going on. You'll know it better than I can describe to you. I want you to take that piece and expand upon it in whatever way seems to work for you. But choose one of those 5 exercises. Take the piece that seems to be moving the most in you right now and give it 25 minutes to just draw out and pull details and add in and see what comes of it. After you are done, as always, I can't wait to share in that writing with you. I hope that you'll be willing to share with me. You can send it to me in email. My email is Emily, so EMILY, at FCC-CL.org. You can give me a call. My information is on the church website. Or you can join us in the Zoom small group that meets every Thursday night from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. If you don't yet have information for joining that Zoom, shoot me an email, Emily at FCC-CL.org, and I will get you that invitation. We would love to have you join us anytime that we can. Enjoy your writing. Go forth and work on that expanded piece for 25 minutes or the whole week, whatever you'd like to do with it. Share your work with someone, even if it's not someone from the church. And we'll see you back here next Friday for week 4. Thanks so much, everyone, for being a part of this journey. It's wonderful to have you here. Take care. God's peace. Bye-bye.